I think that Harry and Meghan were much maligned. The press and the palace combined together to set the public up against them, to make William and Kate look better, and because there was too much glory going on to them. Do you remember the actual joy after that wedding, where everybody loved them, and that couldn't be allowed to continue because the royal line of succession must continue. The big machine, the big carriage has to go on. I can't imagine that Harry and Meghan would give up their life in California. Why should they? They have a very, very good life. But they can do an enormous amount of good. Because, look at Harry's Invictus Games. Look at and actually, it's always blame the woman, isn't it? So Meghan Meghan has copped it from the start, and I think she has a genuine connection with women and with people, and she's a very smart woman. And you were talking about how they spilled all the royal secrets. That there are plenty of royal secrets to come out, believe me, which they didn't spill.
If you really step back and look at what's being said in that original clip, it's not just casual commentary, it's a quiet admission that something deeper was at play. And that's exactly where I want to begin today, because when we talk about Meghan Sussex and Prince Harry, we're not just talking about two individuals, we're talking about a system, a narrative machine, and a very deliberate shift in public perception that didn't just happen overnight. Think about it. 1 minute, the world is celebrating this fairy tale wedding. The energy is electric, people are genuinely excited, and Meghan Sussex is being embraced as a breath of fresh air. There was joy, there was hope, there was this sense that maybe, just maybe, the monarchy was stepping into a more modern, inclusive era. And then suddenly, the tone changes. Not gradually, not subtly, but dramatically. Now, ask yourself, does that kind of shift happen naturally, or does it happen when certain forces decide it's time to rewrite the narrative? Because let's not be naive here. The monarchy doesn't just function on tradition, it runs on perception. Image is everything. And when Meghan Sussex entered that space, she didn't just fit in quietly, she stood out. She was different. She was confident, outspoken, accomplished, and let's be honest, she connected with people in a way that felt real. And instead of that being celebrated long-term, it quickly became something that needed to be managed. And this is where that original statement about the press and the palace working together starts to hit differently. Because whether it's explicit coordination or just a shared understanding of what needs to be protected, the result is the same. Narratives start aligning. Stories start leaning in a certain direction. And suddenly, the same woman who was once praised is now being picked apart for everything from the way she speaks to the way she breathes. I mean, at one point it felt like if Meghan Sussex blinked too confidently, it would be front-page news. Make it make sense. And let's talk about that very convenient pattern, blame the woman. Because that's not new, is it? It's actually one of the oldest tricks in the book. When things get complicated, when dynamics shift, when a man makes a decision people don't like somehow, it circles back to the woman in his life. And in this case, Meghan Sussex became the perfect scapegoat. Suddenly, she's too influential, too controlling, too everything. Meanwhile, Prince Harry, a grown man who has consistently spoken about his own choices and experiences, is somehow reduced to someone who can't think for himself. It's not just unfair, it's borderline insulting. And here's where I have to laugh a little, because the contradictions are wild. The same critics who claim Meghan Sussex has no relevance are the very ones who can't stop talking about her. It's giving obsession. You cannot call someone insignificant while building entire media cycles around their existence. That's not how that works. At this point, Meghan isn't just part of the conversation, she is the conversation. And whether people love that or hate it, they're contributing to it every single time they click, comment, or complain. Now, let's get into this idea that Harry and Meghan left something behind, as if their life in California is some kind of downgrade. I'm sorry, what? They didn't get pushed into a corner with no options, they made a choice. A very intentional one. They chose peace. They chose autonomy. They chose to step away from a system that, by all appearances, was more interested in controlling them than protecting them. And instead of acknowledging the strength it takes to do that, people try to spin it into failure. That narrative doesn't hold up. Because if this is what failure looks like, then a lot of people need to reconsider their definition. Prince Harry is continuing his work with the Invictus Games, creating real, measurable impact for veterans around the world. Meghan Sussex is building her own platforms, using her voice in ways that align with her values. They are raising their family away from relentless scrutiny, and they're doing it on their own terms. That's not losing, that's evolving. And we need to talk about that line in the script about royal secrets because it's subtle, but it's powerful. The suggestion that there's more that hasn't been said? That's huge. Because despite everything we've seen, everything we've heard, everything that's been dissected and debated, there's still a sense that we're only scratching the surface. And yet Meghan Sussex and Prince Harry have shown restraint. Real restraint. Because let's be honest, if they wanted to go all the way there, if they wanted to lay everything out without filters, the entire conversation would shift overnight. But they haven't. And that in itself says a lot. What also stands out to me is how this entire situation keeps circling back to control who has it, who doesn't, and what happens when someone decides to take it back. Meghan Sussex didn't just walk into the royal family and follow a script, she challenged the idea that there should only be one script to follow. And that kind of independence doesn't sit well in environments that rely on tradition and hierarchy. And here's the thing, this isn't about tearing anyone else down. It's about calling out a system that clearly wasn't built to accommodate someone like Meghan Sussex. Because if it was, we wouldn't have seen such an aggressive attempt to reshape her public image. We wouldn't have seen the double standards, the selective outrage, the constant need to compare and contrast. At some point, you have to ask, who benefits from this narrative? Because it's definitely not Meghan Sussex, and it's definitely not Prince Harry. But despite all of that, despite the criticism, the headlines, the endless commentary, they're still here. Still visible, still relevant, still thriving. And that's the part that really disrupts everything. Because the expectation was that they would fade, that they would be sidelined, that their influence would diminish over time. And instead, they've built something entirely their own. And maybe that's what this has really been about all along, not just controlling a narrative, but trying to contain something that refused to be contained. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Meghan Sussex and Prince Harry were unfairly targeted by both the media and the institution? Do you believe their decision to step away was an act of courage, or do you see it differently? And what are your thoughts on the idea that there are still untold stories behind the scenes? Drop your opinions in the comments, because I genuinely want to know where you stand on this. And if you've been enjoying these conversations, make sure you subscribe to Spotlight Daily so you don't miss what's coming next, because trust me, we're only just getting started.